Light Yagami's story has been told before: a genius high school student, a deadly notebook, and a cat and mouse game with the world's greatest detective. But what if this story had a darker, victorious twist? What if Light had won? Welcome to Anime Autopsy's ultimate what-if investigation. Imagine an alternate timeline where Light Yagami defeats every enemy and creates the world he envisioned. No capture, no downfall, just Kira triumphant. It is a world of promise and peril, and we re-about to autopsy every detail. Our tale begins innocently enough. Light Yagami is a brilliant, disillusioned 17-year-old at Daikoku Private Academy. He is top of his class, respected, and utterly bored. deathnote.fandom.com. Through Light's eyes, the world is rotten to the core. Violent crime, corruption, injustice, it all gnaws at him. He yearns for change but feels powerless, until fate intervenes on a drizzly after-school day. A mysterious black notebook falls from the sky onto the school grounds. Its cover reads, Death Note. Light almost dismisses it as a prank. A notebook that kills people? Sure, but curiosity wins out. He picks it up and brings it home. Alone in his room, Light reads the chilling instructions inside. The human whose name is written in this notebook shall die. Deathnote.fandom.com. A ridiculous notion until he decides to test it. That night, a local news report describes a man holding hostages at gunpoint. The criminal's face and name flash on screen, heart pounding. Light writes the name in the death note. He waits, hardly daring to breathe. 40 tense seconds later on live TV, the gunman suddenly collapses, clutching his chest. He's dead. Shock, disbelief, then grim realization. The death note is real. Deathnote.fandom.com. Light's mind races. He now literally holds the power of life and death in his hands. The temptation is overwhelming. What if I could purge all evil? That night marks the end of Light Yagami's innocence. With a burning new conviction, he embraces the notebook's power. Over the next days, Light tests the Death Note's rules in secret. He finds he can specify the time and manner of death to some extent. Each experiment, a trafficker here, a murderer there, confirms the notebook's horrific efficacy. Any moral hesitation he might have felt is smothered by a grand vision taking shape in his mind. Light sees himself as the only one capable of delivering true justice. Deathnote.fandom.com. No one else will be able to bear the burden of improving the world, he tells himself, stealing his resolve. Deathnote.fandom.com. Armed with this power, he could cleanse society of its worst criminals, one by one, until only the righteous remain. He isn't naive. Light knows killing is a crime in itself. Deathnote.fandom.com. But in his eyes, it is a necessary sin, a means to a noble end. If I can eliminate all the rotten people, the world will be safe for the good and innocent. The ends justify the means, a mantra that cements itself in Light's psyche from the very start. And so begins his silent war on evil. Within weeks, news headlines around the world blare with confusion and awe. Dozens of criminals suddenly drop dead from inexplicable heart attacks. Then hundreds. The pattern doesn't go unnoticed. People start whispering about a godly vigilante. They give this unknown killer a name, Kira, derived from the Japanese word for killer. Death Note. Fandom.com, deathnote.fandom.com. At first, Kira is just an urban legend on internet forums and late-night talk shows. But as the body count climbs, fear and fascination grip the public. Light is careful, methodical. He picks off high-profile felons and violent offenders each day after school, often using news reports or confidential police databases his father can access. Yes, Light's father is Soichiro Yagami, a ranking police officer. Late at night, Light slips into his father's home office and peeks at case files, a goldmine of targets. It is almost too easy, he muses as he writes another name. As Kira's divine executions mount, not everyone is celebrating. Law enforcement agencies worldwide are alarmed. Sure, notorious criminals dropping dead sounds like good news until you realize someone is judging and killing people at will, outside any court of law. Governments are pressured to act. Innocent or guilty, no society is comfortable with an invisible killer on the loose. Enter L. A clandestine Interpol meeting is held to discuss the crisis. deathnote.fandom.com, deathnote.fandom.com. Representatives from numerous nations bite their nails, desperate for a solution. They turn to the one man who might outwit this unseen executioner, the world's greatest detective, known only by the alias L. Deathnote. Fandom.com. L is a legend, a shadowy figure who has solved countless unsolvable cases. No one in the room has seen his face, but all have faith in his intellect. When L agrees to take the Kira case, the assembled officials breathe a collective sigh of relief. Kira can be caught, they assure themselves. He must be caught. Light, of course, knows none of this explicitly. What he does notice is the first direct challenge thrown at him, broadcast on live television one fateful evening. Sitting in his bedroom amid study guides and notebooks, Light's attention sharpens at the sight of a stern-faced man on TV identifying himself as L. The man calls Kira a cowardly murderer, condemning these atrocious acts of vigilantism. He looks straight into the camera and issues a dare. Kira, I will find you and bring you to justice. Light's eyes narrow. This fool! How dare anyone call him evil when he is purging evil itself? The man on TV continues, denouncing Kira's sense of justice. Light's temper flares. Without hesitation, he flips open the death note and scribbles the name provided, Lind L. Taylor. If this so-called L wants to challenge him, he'll pay the price. Seconds later, to Light's gratification, the man on screen clutches his chest and collapses, dead. Light allows himself a small triumphant smile. He's proven that no one can stand against Kira's judgment. I am justice. Light whispers to himself as the broadcast cuts out deathnote.fandom.com. But Light's premature victory lap is cut short by an eerie sight on the now blank TV. A stylized letter L appears against a black background. An electronically masked voice speaks, calm, yet with a triumphant edge. The real L reveals that Lind L. Taylor was just a decoy, an incarcerated criminal used to draw Kira out. deathnote.fandom.com. Light's blood runs cold as L methodically explains the trap. The broadcast, L says, was aired only in the Kanto region of Japan, not worldwide. deathnote.fandom.com. By reacting and killing Taylor, Kira has given away his location. In that single impulsive act of anger, Light allowed L to pinpoint that Kira resides somewhere in Kanto. It is a stunning gambit. Light realizes he has been outplayed, at least in this opening move. L's voice hardens as he addresses Kira through the screen. I now know you are in Japan, and I know you need a name and a face to kill. You might have gotten lucky this time, but make no mistake, I will catch you. deathnote.fandom.com. For the first time, Light feels truly threatened. Two young men, Light Yagami and the detective L, have now declared war on each other. Each privately insists that he represents justice, Death Note, fandom.com. For Light, justice means cleansing the world of criminals and anyone who stands in his way. For L, justice means stopping this invisible murderer who's playing God. As the TV broadcast returns to regular programming, Light's mind races. A lesser person might panic after all. Kira has been doxed down to his region, but Light, he simply steeples his fingers, a habit he has picked up from detective novels. Challenge accepted, he says softly, eyes gleaming with a mix of respect and malice. Death Note, fandom.com. Sure, L had taken round one, but the game was just beginning, and Light Yagami does not intend to lose. Kira's challenge had been issued and L's gauntlet thrown. The battle of wits was on. In the days following L's televised provocation, Light tightens his routines and alibis. He knows L will focus on Japan now, perhaps even on police families like his own. Sure enough, Light soon notices something. He's being watched. It starts with a subtle feeling. The hairs on the back of his neck prickling as he walks to class. He catches glimpses of a man following him at a distance, and at home he spots an unfamiliar car idling down the street. Light deduces correctly that L has sent FBI agents to surveil those who might be Kira, and as the son of a police chief with access to case files, Light fits the profile. deathnote.fandom.com, deathnote.fandom.com. One such agent, Ray Penber, tails Light closely. Rather than panic, Light crafts a meticulous trap. One winter afternoon, he boards a crowded city bus with Ray discreetly shadowing him. On that bus, Light executes a genius gambit to learn his stalker's name. Earlier, Light had written down the name of a small-time criminal, Kichiro Osoreda, on a scrap of the Death Note and dropped it near the bus stop. As planned, that very criminal suddenly hijacks the bus, mid-route an orchestrated crisis designed by Light. deathnote.fandom.com. Chaos ensues, passengers scream. Light plays the role of a terrified student while secretly reveling in the pandemonium he has sown. In the commotion, Light accidentally drops a note that lures the armed thug toward Ray Penber. When the panicked hijacker demands identification from everyone, Ray has no choice but to show his FBI badge. Gotcha. Light sees the name on the ID, now he knows his pursuer's true identity. Seconds later, as scripted, the criminal sees a horrific phantom, the Shinigami Ryuk, whom the thug can see upon touching the Death Note scrap, deathnote.fandom.com, and flees the bus in terror. Moments after stumbling off, the criminal is struck by a passing car and killed. deathnote.fandom.com. The crisis ends as abruptly as it began. To all onlookers, including the shaken Ray Penber, it seems like a bizarre accident. No one suspects that Light orchestrated every detail. deathnote.fandom.com, deathnote.fandom.com. With Ray's name in hand, Light moves swiftly. He isn't content with merely eliminating his own tail. He wants to cripple L's entire surveillance operation in one blow. Using the Death Note's control ability, Light forces Ray into an unwitting suicide mission. Under Kira's influence, Ray passes through the ticket gates at Shinjuku Station, nervously clutching a brown envelope that Light gave him under false pretenses. Inside are hidden pages of the Death Note. Over a tiny earphone, Light, speaking in a pre-recorded message, guides Ray step by step. One by one, Ray contacts each of his fellow FBI agents in Japan, requesting the names of all agents on the Kira case. deathnote.fandom.com. Believing it as a routine directive, they comply. As Ray writes down each name on the death note pages in the envelope, Light S' deadly script seals their fates. Moments later, Ray Penber boards a subway car with Light following at a careful distance. The Agent S duty is done. The envelope with a list of names falls from his hand as his eyes glaze over. Ray's heart suddenly stops. Across Tokyo and beyond, 11 other agents clutch their chests and collapse almost in unison, victims of simultaneous heart attacks. In a single stroke, Kira wipes out all of LS Field operatives. Light steps off the train amid the commotion around Reyes' lifeless body. He walks away with cool confidence, knowing L has just been dealt a heavy blow. News of the FBI tragedy spreads rapidly. The Japanese task force, the small contingent of police dedicated to catching Kira, is shaken to its core. These were foreign agents working in secret. How on earth did Kira know and strike them all down at once? Within police headquarters, Soichiro Yagami and a few loyal colleagues reel at the brazenness of it. Kira has eyes inside the force, they fear. Many officers resign, unwilling to risk their lives facing a supernatural killer who can seemingly target anyone without a trace. Those who remain are the bravest of the brave, or perhaps the most driven by personal conviction. Soichiro stays, determined not to let his son S' future be darkened by a world ruled by fear. Among those who left was Ray Penber's fiancée, a former FBI agent named Naomi Masora. Devastated and suspicious of the circumstances, Naomi quietly launches her own investigation into her husband-to-be's mysterious death. She's resourceful and intelligent. L himself once praised her skills on a past case. Naomi deduces that Ray likely encountered Kira during that bus-jacking incident he'd mentioned. She theorizes Kira might have even been on that bus, manipulating events. One chilly morning outside the police station, Light notices a young woman standing alone, staring at the Building S entrance. It's Naomi, who has come to offer information to the task force but was turned away. Outsiders aren't welcome. Seeing an opportunity, Light approaches with a concerned smile. Posing as the polite, helpful son of the police chief, he strikes up conversation. "Miss, you seem troubled. Is there anything I can do to help?" My father is actually leading the Kira investigation. His warm, earnest demeanor coaxes Naomi to lower her guard. She introduces herself with an alias Shoko Maki, but reveals enough details about her fiancé that Light pieces together who she really is. This is Ray Penber's fiancé. A cold chill of danger runs through Light. If Naomi shares what she suspects with the task force, she could point them in Light's direction. Thinking quickly, Light offers to bring her to someone who will listen, suggesting they work together to get her story heard. As they walk away from headquarters, he gently probes for information. Naomi outlines her theory that Kira can kill in ways other than heart attacks. She suspects the bus hijacker's bizarre death was no coincidence, and that Kira might have been on that bus, perhaps as a student. Light forces himself to remain calm, even as her deductions cut close to the truth. Outwardly, he has the picture of empathy, nodding and encouraging her. Inwardly, he knows Naomi Masora is too dangerous to live. Light leads Naomi toward a quiet corner outside the station, under the pretense of fetching his car. Here, he makes his move. "Ms. Maki, I'll make sure the right people hear your story. But first, could you tell me your real name? Just for the record, in case we need your testimony." Naomi hesitates, then decides she can trust this well-mannered teen who shares her goal of catching Kira. She softly gives her name, Naomi Misora. The moment the name leaves her lips, Light's friendly facade fades ever so slightly. There's a glint in his eyes, predatory triumph tinged with regret as he thanks her. They part ways. Naomi heading off feeling hopeful at last, believing she's found an ally. She never makes it back to the police station. Later that day, Naomi Misora vanishes. In truth, she is yet another name gently written into Light's death note. Light uses her name to script a perfect suicide, ensuring her body is never found. He writes it with a heavy heart. Naomi did nothing wrong beyond seeking justice. But she was a threat, and in Light's absolutist world, threats are dealt with mercilessly. Her death gives him pause for only a moment. A tiny pang of guilt arises as he realizes he's killed an innocent woman, not a criminal. Ryuk, floating nearby and munching on an apple, cackles at Light's discomfort. Getting rid of anyone in your way now, huh? The Shinigami teases with a razor-toothed grin. Light steels himself, all for the new world. He will allow himself no weakness. With Naomi's disappearance, the last investigative lead pointing to Light evaporates. L, however, is no fool. The FBI agent's simultaneous deaths and the mysterious vanishing of Penber's fiancée confirm his fear that Kira has infiltrated the investigation itself. It is likely, L concludes, that Kira has access to police information, perhaps through a family member of the task force deathnote.fandom.com. A troubling theory begins to form in L's mind about the Yagami household. Light Yagami top student, bright future, beloved son of a police chief, could this seemingly perfect young man actually be Kira? The notion seems absurd, yet too many coincidences point that way. Unable to directly accuse without evidence, L opts for a subtler approach. He requests to be introduced to the Yagami family under the guise of needing their help in the investigation. One evening, as the sun sets over Tokyo, Soichiro brings an unexpected guest home. A lean, slouching young man with disheveled black hair and ghostly eyes stands in Light's doorway, Tael in the flesh, introducing himself under a fake name, of course. Light greets him politely, but his mind races. This stranger, could it be? Though L gives the alias Hideki Ryuga, Light's intuition screams that this is the real L. For their first face-to-face encounter, L keeps it brief. A courteous thank you to the family, a direct gaze held a beat too long on Light. Each of them is sizing up the other. As L departs into the night, Light sees suspicions solidify. He considers writing the stranger's name in the death note, but refrains. If he's wrong and kills an innocent person, it would expose Kira in an instant. Besides, Hideki Ryuga is obviously a pseudonym. It is a stalemate for now. Frustrated by the lack of progress, L takes a bold step. He reveals himself and his intentions to a select group of Japanese police, recruiting them into an official Kira task force. In a secured hotel suite, L finally shows his face to this trusted few and confirms what some had guessed. The young eccentric calling himself Ryuzaki is indeed L Soichiro, and the others are stunned to meet the legend in person. L lays out his reasoning. Kira very likely has access to police intel through an insider. He even openly states his lingering suspicion of Light. Soichiro bristles his son, a mass murderer, impossible. Detective Tuda Matsuda, a junior member, defends Light's character, but L remains coolly unconvinced. I suspect Light Yagami is Kira, maybe a 5 chance. Rising to 7 years, he muses while nibbling a sugar cube. those dark ringed eyes never leaving the surveillance monitors, showing the Yagami house. Yes, L has already taken extreme measures. In secret, he planted dozens of cameras and listening devices throughout the Yagami home, especially in Light's bedroom, deathnote.fandom.com. If Light is Kira, L hopes to catch him slipping up. For 5 long days, every moment of Light's life is under L's unblinking gaze. It has an unprecedented invasion of privacy. Even Light's mother and sister are unwittingly monitored. But L's desperation to find evidence outweighs any moral qualms. Light, however, senses something amiss almost immediately. Ryak complains in a whisper, only Light can hear, that he can find any apples to eat in the house, a hint that something's off, since Light would normally feed Ryak apples freely if unobserved. This clue and Light's own wariness lead him to discreetly search his room. Sure enough, he finds one of L's hidden cameras behind a wall clock. Rather than panic, Light executes one of his most daring ploys yet. In a brilliant act of misdirection, Light stages a facade of complete normalcy. He behaves as the perfect hard-working student, studying diligently, watching wholesome TV shows, sleeping soundly, all under the constant eye of L's cameras, while continuing his Kira work in secret. In one of his slyest tricks, Light conceals a tiny portable television inside a bag of potato chips. While appearing to idly snack and do homework in front of L's surveillance cameras, Light is actually watching news broadcasts inside the chip bag and writing criminals' names on a thin slip of Death Note paper hidden within deathnote.fandom.com. To any observer, he is simply eating chips and poring over his textbook. In reality, he is carrying out murders without so much as a telltale glance at a TV. The audacity is breathtaking. When a string of criminals dies during this surveillance period, L's eyes widen in disbelief. The video feed shows Light under constant watch, never leaving his desk except for the bathroom, seemingly with no access to news, ostensibly no way he could be killing anyone. Yet the deaths continue unabated. Could he have been wrong about Light? L's confidence wavers. After a week, convinced that bugging the Yagami house is yielding nothing, L reluctantly withdraws the cameras. Privately, he admits that while Light isn't entirely cleared, there's no evidence to justify the suspicion. Light, sensing L's retreat, finally allows himself a moment to breathe. He has won this round of mental chess. In truth, neither opponent is ready to back down. In a move of calculated diplomacy, L invites Light to officially join the investigation. It is a strategy laden with risk. Keep your enemy closer. L reasons that if Light is Kira, having him nearby under direct observation might confirm it, and if he has not, his intellect could genuinely help catch Kira. Light, for his part, feigns humility and eagerness to bring Kira to justice. "If there is anything I can do to help, I am at your service," he says with a charming smile, even as he and L trade razor-sharp glances. Thus begins an uneasy alliance. Light and L. Seated at the same conference table, poring over case files by day, playing mind games by night in conversations that are equal parts friendly and fraught with subtext. They even attend Tu'u University together, L, enrolling under yet another pseudonym, where they famously face off in a friendly tennis match. On the surface, it is just two college boys blowing off steam. But every serve and return is layered with psychological warfare. L lobs probing questions between strokes. Light smashes back clever rebuttals while gauging L's reactions. As Light prepares to serve yet another point, L decides to strike up conversation over the net. Tell me, Light-kun. L calls out nonchalantly, tapping the ball against his racket. What do you suppose Kira is thinking right now? Light catches the ball and stands poised to serve, giving L a polite smile while parsing the loaded question. Who knows? Maybe he's worried his next opponent could be even tougher than he expected, Light replies. With a swift toss, he delivers an ace straight down the line. L's eyes narrow as he just barely manages to return it. Tougher, huh? You don't say? L replies, voice as bland as ever but with a hint of challenge. They're no longer talking about tennis and both know it. Light smirks as he closes out the point with a sharp volley. Hypothetically, he adds lightly, meeting L at the net during a brief pause. If I were Kira, I'd certainly be kept on my toes. Good, L answers quietly, holding Light at gaze as he spins the tennis ball in his hand. A little challenge is healthy. Both of them smile thinly, the meaning clear beneath the surface pleasantries. By the end of that match, it has a tie in more ways than one. Neither yields an inch intellectually, and both walk away more resolved than ever to best the other. During one break in an investigation meeting, L tries a different tack, voice as casual as he can manage. Light-kun? Do you ever think Kira maybe has a point even if his methods are wrong? It is an unexpected question L tested in Light's ideology directly. Light's heart skips a beat. Is this a trap? He answers carefully, I would never condone murder, but I can understand the frustration with how ineffective our justice system can be. It has a calculated response, hinting at justification for Kira without admitting anything. L hums in acknowledgement, twirling a stirrer in his coffee. I see, is all he says, expression unreadable. They circle each other like chess grandmasters, each looking for that one decisive opening. For a while, it is a battle of attrition with no obvious winner. And then, as if the game wasn't complex enough, a new player enters, one who will tip the scales and escalate the conflict to new heights. It starts with bizarre tapes delivered to a television station, Sakura TV, from someone claiming to be Kira. Light and L watch in astonishment as a strange video message airs, a voice masked by distortion and a swirling logo on screen, issuing cryptic sermons and demands. But something is off. This Kira asks for public demonstrations of support and even targets minor lawbreakers, deviating from the original Kira S pattern. Light S eyes widen. He knows he didn't send these tapes. An imposter. Or more accurately, a second Kira. The task force scrambles at this unexpected development. To L, the prospect of a second Kira is both alarming and an opportunity perhaps they can bait this one into revealing themselves, which might indirectly expose the original. To Light, it is an unpredictable variable he must control quickly. He worries. This second Kira-esque recklessness could ruin everything. Yet it could also be the ace up his sleeve if he plays it right. Through Sakura TV, L arranges a public response, a recorded challenge to the second Kira, hoping to provoke them into a misstep. Light volunteers to assist in crafting the message as part of the team, cleverly inserting a hidden signal only the real Kira himself and the imposter might notice. Sure enough, a reply from the second Kira arrives and indicates a willingness to meet the real Kira. The stage is set. Unbeknownst to L or anyone else, Light has his own designs. This imposter turns out to be Misa Amani, a rising model with a tragic past and a fervent devotion to Kira. Misa's parents were murdered in front of her when she was a child, and their killer escaped justice until Kira punished him. Deathnote.fandom.com. Ever since, Misa has worshipped Kira as a savior. Through a supernatural twist, she came to possess a Death Note of her own. Unlike Light, Misa made the costly Shinigami ideal, having her lifespan in exchange for the ability to see anyone's real name and remaining lifespan above their head. It is a terrifying power and exactly the advantage Light needs. Misa, ecstatic to have found the true Kira, manages to track Light down before L or the police can find her. One evening, as Light returns to an empty house, his family out, a bubbly young woman in gothic attire practically ambushes him at his doorstep. "Light Yagami, I finally found you," she squeals, eyes shining. Light is momentarily stunned. How does this stranger know his name? Ryuk hovers nearby, clearly amused by this turn of events. Misa wastes no time confirming his suspicions. She's the author of the Sakura TV tapes, and she recognized Light as Kira thanks to her Shinigami eyes. The moment she saw Light in a crowd, she saw the name Light Yagami floating above his head, proof enough for her that he is Kira. Inside, Light listens warily as Misa practically gushes over him. She kneels and declares she'll do anything for him. To prove her loyalty, she even hands over her Death Note to Light, an act of absolute devotion. Light's mind races. This development is a double-edged sword. On one hand, Misa's dedication and her Shinigami eyes are invaluable assets. On the other hand, her impulsive behavior and the attention she's drawn are massive liabilities. L is already analyzing those tapes for clues. It's only a matter of time before he uncovers Misa's identity if she's not extremely careful. Light knows he must keep Misa safe from L for her sake and for his own. He sets strict ground rules. She is never to reveal herself as the second Kira again, or do anything flashy without his permission, and she must stay hidden. Misa pouts she only wanted to help her beloved Kira, but ultimately agrees. She's overjoyed just to be by Kira's side at last, even if it's in secret. Despite their precautions, L's net closes in. Through forensic analysis and a bit of luck, L identifies traces of Misa in the letters that accompanied the tape's fibers, ink matching her stationaries, and a distinct perfume scent. It is enough to narrow down a list of suspects, and Misa Amani's name rises to the top. L sets a trap. They broadcast a fake message from Kira arranging a meeting in Aoyama with the second Kira. Misa, against Light's instructions, goes to the meeting spot in disguise, hoping to encounter her hero. L, predicting this, has agents planted in the area. When Misa arrives in Aoyama, she senses she's being tailed. Using her Shinigami eyes, she spots an undercover agent following her, his lifespan visible above his head, marking him as someone who is likely after Kira. Panicking, she realizes this must be part of L's scheme. Rem, the Shinigami accompanying Misa invisibly, warns her to leave immediately. In her hasty retreat through a dense crowd, Misa drops her mobile phone. It is quickly retrieved by LS agents, and its call history links her to Light Yagami. The evidence is mounting. It doesn't take long for L to make his move. Under cover of darkness, Misa is quietly ambushed by LS operatives, blindfolded and taken into custody. L informs the task force that they've captured the likely second Kira. Light feigns surprise and concern as the team convenes, but inside he is alarmed. He knows Misa's resolve could crack under pressure, and if she says anything implicating him, it is over. Worse, L might not even need a confession. Just holding her could spur Rem, who cares deeply for Misa, into doing something drastic. Locked in a dark cell, Misa undergoes grueling interrogation. L is merciless, keeping her bound hand and foot, face covered so she can see anyone's name. He needs her to admit to being the second Kira, but Misa, to her credit, sticks to denials. Days pass, and L resorts to the cruel tactic of suggesting that if she doesn't cooperate, she'll be executed as a terrorist. Misa, delirious from confinement, cries out for Light, in despair a slip that L quietly takes note of. Meanwhile, Light is invited by L to observe parts of the interrogation. The detective claims Light, as a member of the team, might provide insights. It takes all of Light's acting skill to appear horrified and sympathetic, rather than enraged and desperate. Watching Misa suffer is agonizing not just because she's a pawn in his game, but because some part of Light actually feels responsible. She's here because of me, he thinks with a rare pang of guilt. Still, he maintains his composure, offering L measured comments like, I'm not sure she's the one, she seems genuinely confused, while inwardly he's counting the seconds until Rem might intervene. Rem, the Shinigami, is indeed in the corner of Misa's cell, unseen to humans but watching the cruelty unfold with increasing anger. Rem cares for Misa deeply. Jalis the Shinigami sacrificed himself to save Misa's life, and Rem feels bound to honor Gaelus's love. With each passing hour of Misa's torment, Rem edges closer to violating the cardinal Shinigami law: never use the death note to extend a human's life, for it will cost the Shinigami's own life. When L tells the near catatonic Misa that if she doesn't cooperate, she will be executed as an accomplice, Rem reaches her breaking point. In that instant, Rem resolves to act, fully aware of the cost. With supernatural swiftness, she scribbles two names in her death note: L's true name, which her Shinigami eyes reveal above his head as he stands outside Misa's cell, and Watari's name, L's loyal assistant, who at that moment is monitoring the interrogation cameras. Rem's skeletal hand trembles. By extending Misa's life through this act, she's effectively signing her own death warrant. But she doesn't hesitate. Back in the main investigation headquarters, Light is in the middle of a tense meeting with task force members when it happens. Without warning, L's image on the monitor jolts. The detective is seen clutching his chest. In person, L staggers into the doorway, eyes wide in disbelief. "Whoa, Watari!" he gasps, but his microphone falls silent. Light watches in genuine shock as L collapses to the floor. Soichiro rushes to his side, but the brilliant detective who vowed to catch Kira is gone before he even hits the ground. At that same moment, on L's computer screens, the network goes dark. Watari, too, has died of a sudden heart attack at Rem's hand. For a heartbeat, everyone is too stunned to move. Light stands frozen, struggling to keep his expression appropriate to the moment. This is it. L is dead. He reels inside, a storm of triumph and relief threatening to break across his face. Quickly, Light kneels beside his father, feigning shock and grief. "What happened?" he cries convincingly, reaching out as if to help. Soichiro is in a daze, pressing futilely on L's chest. Matsuda fumbles to call for an ambulance, hands trembling. But he's far too late. Within minutes, L, the great L, Light's arch nemesis, lies lifeless on the cold floor. Rem's sacrifice is complete. In Misa's cell, the locks on her restraints snap open, a result of Watari's death, triggering failsafe commands. Rem herself crumbles away into dust, her form disintegrating now that she's broken the ultimate Shinigami law to save the human she loved. Misa, still blindfolded and half-conscious, senses the presence of her Shinigami vanish. She's dazed but alive, saved by Rem's final act. In the chaos, Light rushes down the hall. "I'll check on the suspect," he calls, using the confusion as cover to reach Misa's cell. He finds her weak but free of her handcuffs. Light quickly removes her blindfold. "Light, you came for me," she murmurs, tears of relief welling up. Light presses a finger to her lips gently and nods. There will be time for explanations later. For now, they must play their parts carefully. Returning to the control room with Misa leaning on him, Light reports, "Her cell opened. Somehow, is everyone okay?" The task force is too shell-shocked to question anything. Soichiro, cradling LS body, is deathly pale. The others stand in stunned silence. None fully understand what just occurred, but all assume one thing. Kira killed L to protect himself. In the following days, a somber gloom hangs over the investigation. Without LS guiding hand, some officers are at a loss. The task force members vow to continue the hunt in LS name, but they have few leads and heavy hearts. However, one person uses the chaos to his advantage: Light. Subtly, he steps into the void L left. After all, he was LS' right hand on the team. He has the trust of his father and the remaining members. At a crisis meeting, with morale at rock bottom, Light speaks up with inspiring resolve. "We cannot let Ryuzaki's sacrifice be in vain," he says, voice firm. Kira thinks he has won, but if we band together, we can still catch him. The others nod, stirred by the young man's determination. Indeed, who would suspect that the one rallying them is secretly rejoicing? Unnoticed, a faint smile curls on Light's lips as he directs the conversation. In the canon timeline, during this lull, a new Kira from Yotsuba Corporation emerged to exploit Kira's power for personal gain. But in this alternate path, Light never gives anyone that chance. There is no Yotsuba Kira. Light maintains unbroken control of the Death Note, preventing pretenders from muddying the waters. Only one Kira remains, operating from the shadows exactly as Light intended. With L gone and no immediate successor coming forward, the Kira case enters a lull. Light uses his position to misdirect and stall the investigation indefinitely, much to the frustration of a few task force members like Aizawa, who can shake suspicions about the new L. But lacking evidence or outside support, they can do little. Light even manages to placate them by capturing a few minor copycat criminals, taking down small fry Kira worshippers, and playing it up as progress. These token victories bolster the team's confidence in him. He occasionally makes a show of pursuing false leads or setting up elaborate sting operations that predictably fail just to maintain the appearance of diligence. The investigation is effectively paralyzed, but thanks to Light's careful performance, none of the remaining detectives realize it. Within the task force, Light carefully monitors his colleagues for any hint of suspicion. If he even sensed someone was onto him, he'd deal with it. Fortunately for them, his facade holds. Soichiro remains steadfast in believing his son's innocence. Matsuda is too naive to doubt Light's earnest act, and Aizawa, though more wary, keeps his concerns private for now. Light assumes the codename L in communications with other agencies, giving the world the impression that L is still alive and on the case, albeit working more covertly. By early 2005, Light Yagami has effectively become the new L. Publicly, He has a brilliant young detective leading the charge against Kira. Privately, he is Kira, steering the investigation away from himself at every turn. The dichotomy is almost poetic, and so time passes with Kira S. reign completely unchecked. The original L is dead. No one in the task force can challenge Light. The world starts to adapt to Kira S. presence, and Light S. vision inches closer to reality. Within the 6 years of Kira S. existence, public opinion undergoes a profound shift. What began as whispers of fear and curiosity turns into widespread support for Kira S. actions, especially as people notice tangible changes in their daily lives. Crime rates are dropping dramatically. Governments, seeing no viable way to stop Kira and bowing to popular pressure, quietly cease active attempts to capture him. Deathnote.fandom.com. The American president, a weak-willed figure named George Saris in the East Death Note universe, essentially surrenders, calling off all investigations into Kira to avoid incurring his wrath. Other world leaders follow suit. Even some dictators and strongmen publicly laud Kira S. work a convenient excuse to intensify their own crackdowns under the guise of Kira S. will, further blurring the line between true justice and authoritarian control. By the last few years of Kira S. reign, the majority of the global public has come to accept, even embrace the new order Deathnote.fandom.com. Some still view Kira as a murderer, of course, but they are increasingly in the minority and mostly keep such opinions to themselves. To a large portion of the public, Kira is not just a vigilante he is God. They truly begin to worship him. Year by year, Light S. New World quietly takes shape. Open opposition to Kira dwindles to almost nothing. Many former critics either fall silent or meet mysterious ends. With L out of the picture and no apparent replacement stepping up, Near and Mello, LS potential successors at Wami S House, remain in the shadows for now, biding their time. Kira effectively rules from the shadows. Light sits at the top of both hierarchies in his life, the public hero heading the Kira investigation and the secret overlord wielding the Death Note with absolute confidence. He has achieved exactly what he set out to: become the god of a new world. Day-to-day life under Kira S. dominion is a study in contrasts. On one hand, the streets have never been safer. The commonplace anxieties of the early 2000s muggings, gang violence, random shootings have all but evaporated. Urban crime rates plummet to record lows worldwide. Parents tuck their children in at night with far less fear of them falling victim to crime. The era of Kira is, in a very tangible sense, the most crime-free period in modern history. Deathnote.fandom.com. In many cities, one can walk alone at midnight and feel as secure as they would at noon. The populace has internalized a simple calculus: committing serious crime equals death by Kira. Thus, potential criminals are dissuaded long before they act. This deterrence is near total, a real-world embodiment of the old theory of the panopticon, the idea that if people believe they are under constant, unseen surveillance, they will police themselves. He is seen, but he does not see. He's an object of information, never a subject in communication. Philosopher Michel Foucault wrote of the Panopticon S Invisible Guard, TheGuardian.com. Under Kira S invisible gaze, society itself becomes a panopticon. Every citizen feels they could be watched at any moment, always wondering, would Kira think what I am about to do is evil? To truly gauge Kira S impact, consider countless individual stories. Picture a would-be thief in Los Angeles, standing outside a convenience store late at night. His hand hovers inside his jacket, where a pistol is concealed. In the pre-Kira days, desperation might have driven him to rob the store. But now sweat beads on his forehead as he imagines an unseen God watching from above. He pictures his name on the news tomorrow and a phantom hand writing it into a notebook of death. With a curse under his breath, he abandons the plan and slinks back into the alley, heart pounding. The clerk inside never realizes how close he came to being a victim. Such unseen moments play out everywhere. Crimes quietly aborted because the would-be perpetrators fear Kira's wrath more than anything, and so people behave. Youths caught spraying graffiti on a wall turn ghost white at even a joking mention of Kira, as if expecting a lightning bolt to strike them down that instant. White-collar employees tempted to embezzle a bit of company money quash the thought no amount of cash is worth risking an early grave. Traffic violations diminish. Road rage incidents drop sharply as drivers bite their tongues rather than explode at a stranger. Who knows if Kira is watching and ready to judge a momentary violent outburst? On the surface, it looks like a golden age of civility and order. For police forces, Kira is a double-edged sword. On one hand, their work has become far safer and easier. On the other, many officers feel an uneasy loss of purpose, as Kira renders them nearly obsolete in combating major crime. In some countries, detective units downsize drastically. When any high-profile murderer will be dead before trial, why maintain large homicide divisions? The role of law enforcement shifts towards supporting Kira's system, focusing on collecting and publicizing information about criminals rather than apprehending them. Courtrooms see far fewer trials for violent offenses. Judges in many regions are reassigned to handle a backlog of minor cases, since serious criminals rarely survive long enough to stand trial. Prisons, too, begin to empty out. By 2015, many correctional facilities report record low inmate populations. A number of prisons are repurposed into rehabilitation centers or even housing projects because there simply aren't enough convicted criminals to fill them anymore. Some officials hail this as a positive social transformation proof that Kira's justice has created a safer world, but others note an eerie truth. This peace has been achieved not through reform or rule of law, but through the workings of an invisible executioner. Yet beneath that enforced harmony lies a quiet undercurrent of anxiety. Citizens have undeniably traded freedom for security in the most literal sense. This trade-off isn't mandated by any government edict. It is a self-enforced social contract with a faceless enforcer. People avoid speaking out of turn, not because some big brother government might be listening with hidden microphones, but because an even more omnipresent big brother might be lurking in their own hearts and minds. A neighbor stops himself from gossiping about someone else's misdeeds. Instead, he wonders if he should anonymously tip off Akira Supporters Hotline. Yes, those exist now, websites where citizens can submit names of suspected criminals. Many police departments quietly forward these tips into a database that presumably only El Kira can access. An elementary school teacher overhears two students bullying a classmate. She sternly warns them, "Stop that." You don't want to do evil things. Kira is watching. The kids immediately freeze, eyes wide with fear. They've grown up with that warning. They know it's not an idle threat. Indeed, a whole generation is coming of age having only known a world under Kira's watch. Teenagers in 2015 were perhaps 8 or 9 years old when Kira first appeared. Their entire moral framework has been shaped by his absolute, uncompromising brand of justice. In classrooms, discussions of ethics carry a very real immediacy. What is right or wrong? A teacher asks a high school ethics class. A student promptly responds, "Right is what Kira says is right. You just don't do anything that would make you deserve to die." These young people largely support Kira wholeheartedly, having been indoctrinated by both fear and the observable improvement in society as safety. To them, the nuances of due process or the idea that even criminals have rights are almost alien concepts now. After all, as Light once said in the original timeline, if Kira rules the world, he is justice bought a hammock.github.io. That line was a self-justifying boast then, but through repetition and results, it has become the credo of a new era. Meanwhile, the media and information sphere also transforms under Kira-S influence. With Kira-S popularity soaring, especially among those under 30 who barely remember the pre-Kira era, most mainstream media outlets shift to an openly pro-Kira stance by default. News programs report Kira-S latest punishments almost like weather reports, factual, neutral in tone, sometimes even optimistic. Today, 34 criminals across 12 countries died of sudden heart attacks, presumably at the hands of Kira. Among them were a notorious cartel leader and several corrupt government officials. Sources say global markets reacted positively to the news. That's a typical evening bulletin now. Initially, some journalists and editors bristled at the idea of taking Kira-S killings in stride. Wasn't it the press-S job to question and investigate, not simply accept an unseen executioner? But those outspoken critics met one of two fates: unemployment or unexplained death. Over time, a form of self-censorship solidifies in newsrooms everywhere. No major newspaper will publish op-eds condemning Kira. No TV pundit will openly label him a murderer. There's no official government muzzle, but everyone knows the line that cannot be crossed. As a result, the media often lauds Kira's contributions to society as safety, or at most, raises gentle, abstract questions like, are we becoming too dependent on Kira for justice? To which panelists inevitably respond with some variation of Kira has made the world better, so let S not complain. An interesting side effect is the emergence of outright Kira-worshipping media. Sakura TV, which once sensationalized Kira-S exploits for ratings, evolves into a sort of Kira propaganda channel. They air a weekly program called Kira-S Kingdom, where viewers call in to share stories of how Kira saved them or to publicly thank Kira for eradicating some local criminal. The host, once a craven opportunist named Demagawa, now speaks of Kira with reverence and encourages viewers to keep Kira-S teachings in your heart. It is both absurd and chilling, a cult of personality built around a person no one has ever seen. If that sounds like religion, it's because it practically is. Over the years, the cult of Kira becomes a global phenomenon, not an officially organized religion per se, but a loosely knit network of devotees who literally worship Kira as a divine figure. In city after city, people gather on the anniversary of Kira-S first killing to hold candlelight vigils. At these gatherings, they chant slogans and prayers. Kira, protect us. Kira is justice. Kira is hope. They carry banners with Kira-S name or with angelic depictions of an unseen figure smiting devils. In the final chapter of the Death Note manga, an image of cloaked Kira worshippers trekking through mountains with candles was shown deathnote.fandom.com. In our timeline, that image multiplies 1,000-fold. An entire movement of Kira devotees spans the globe. They are ordinary people, office workers, parents, students, all coming together to idolize the unseen hand that purges evil from the world. Many have personal reasons a loved one was saved from a criminal because Kira struck first, or they themselves were a victim who saw their assailant punished by Kira. They truly believe Kira is the answer to humanity's prayers. Traditional religions don't quite know what to do about Kira. For many religious leaders, Kira poses a theological conundrum. Is he an instrument of God's will or a blasphemer playing God? Different faith communities respond differently. The Vatican issues a cautious statement lamenting Kira's methods. Murder is still a sin after all, but acknowledging the reduction of evil his actions have brought essentially sitting on the fence. Some Christian pastors in America go further, declaring Kira a divine agent sent to cleanse the world before the second coming. Their churches see a surge in attendance by Kira supporters who want to fold their new hero into established doctrine. In contrast, other clergymen fiercely denounce Kira as the work of Satan, warning that the devil often masquerades as an angel of light. Similar debates rage within every major religion. In mosques and temples, some argue Kira violates the fundamental principles of mercy and only God can judge, while others quietly opine that perhaps God has chosen Kira as a tool to enact judgment on earth. By and large, the everyday faithful lean toward gratitude. They reason that God works in mysterious ways, and perhaps Kira is one of them. For the non-religious who nonetheless crave something to believe in, Kira fills that void, a tangible force making the world better in their view, something real they can devote themselves to in place of traditional faith. Philosophers and ethicists find themselves in a bind as well. Many traditional moral frameworks start to crumble under Kira's new reality. Utilitarian thinkers, those who advocate the greatest good for the greatest number, are split. Some argue Kira is the ultimate utilitarian. He sacrificed a relative handful, criminals and yes, the occasional collateral victim like the FBI agents or Naomi, to save potentially millions from being hurt by crime. Look at the numbers they insist. If Kira's presence prevents hundreds of thousands of crimes, can any amount of extrajudicial killing outweigh that benefit? botahammock.github.io, botahammock.github.io. It is a cold calculation, but many find it compelling when couched in hard statistics. On the other hand, deontologists and human rights advocates maintain that no one, not even a seemingly infallible executioner, should have the power to kill without trial. They invoke deeply ingrained principles: due process, innocent until proven guilty. But those words ring hollow to a public that watch the old justice system fail them time and again, and that now sees immediate results from Kira. The counter-argument from Kira's supporters is blunt. Kira is due process. In their view, Kira became the ultimate judge, and unlike human courts, he can be bribed, fooled, or swayed by emotions. If he decided someone deserved death, they likely did. This belief borders on faith. In fact, it is faith. Kira's justice isn't transparent. The world doesn't know exactly how he chooses victims. Only the criminals die after being publicly revealed. The mechanism is mysterious. Few know about the death note. So people fill in the gaps with quasi-religious reasoning. Kira can see into the hearts of men, one widely circulated theory postulates. He somehow knows who is truly evil. This is easier for the public to accept than the idea that their savior might ever be working with incomplete information. Thus, on the rare occasions when someone Kira killed posthumously turns out to have been innocent of the crime they were accused of, it does happen perhaps a wrongly convicted felon or a suspect later proven not guilty, cognitive dissonance kicks in. Many rationalize it away. If Kira killed them, they must have done something else bad that wasn't public. We just don't know about it. Conspiracy theories even flourish, claiming that any such posthumous exoneration is fake news fabricated by anti-Kira elements. In the face of Kira-s mythos, truth itself grows relative. Yet there are tragic stories that underlie the moral ambiguity of Kira-s world. One notable case whispered about in academic circles is that of Alexander Hodge, a death row inmate in America who always maintained his innocence in a 1990s murder. In 2013, new DNA evidence finally proved Hodge had been wrongfully convicted. But by then, Kira had already seen media reports naming Hodge as a killer and judged him. Hodge died of a heart attack in his cell a year before the evidence exonerating him came to light. The state quietly issued a posthumous pardon, but there was no public outcry. It's hard to rally people against an error by Kira when fear and reverence for him run so deep. Instead, many simply shrugged and assumed Hodge must have committed other crimes to have warranted Kira-s punishment. This unsettling incident and a few other potential miscarriages of Kira-s justice get little play in mainstream media. But in law schools and philosophy seminars, they fuel debates late into the night. Is a utopia built on infallible punishment worth even one innocent life lost? Meanwhile, Light sits at the apex of this new moral paradigm, tweaking the narrative when needed. Through carefully crafted messages delivered as L, he occasionally nudges public perception. For example, when some citizens began to worry that Kira might start killing for minor infractions, a typed message mysteriously appeared on government websites and in LS voice to the media. Kira's goal is to eliminate profound evil. Law-abiding citizens have nothing to fear. Deathnote.fandom.com, deathnote.fandom.com. This calmed nerves and reaffirmed that Kira was targeting only the worst of the worst. Light knows he must keep the support of the good, honest majority. As he once thought to himself, the good people of the world will live in peace, and the evil people will be judged. Now he makes sure the good people feel that peace every day, so they continue to accept, even cheer, his judgment on the wicked. With the world effectively prostrated before him, one might wonder about Light Yagami's inner life after achieving victory. Does he sleep well at night? Does he feel lonely standing atop this new Olympus of his own making? Light had sacrificed so much family, friends, his own innocence to get here. Initially, in the immediate aftermath of his triumph over L, he did experience flickers of solitude and perhaps a phantom pang of loss. His father Soichiro eventually died during the mop-up operations against Mello's gang, a risky raid that Light orchestrated, which ended with Soichiro tragically shot but never learning the truth about his son. His greatest opponent, L, was gone. Even the adrenaline rush of battle, the thrill that had sustained him for so long, was over. Absolute power can be, in a way, absolutely boring once secured. Ryuk, ever observant, made a sly comment not long after Near-S demise. All the biggest games are finished, huh? Things might get dull for you, Light. Light had merely smirked, eyes already glinting with new purpose. No, reshaping the world is the ultimate game, he replied. That's how Light staves off the ennui of victory by immersing himself fully in the grand project of godhood. There's always more to do in his mind, more criminals to judge, more policies to subtly influence, more societal improvements to usher in under Kira's banner. Throughout it all, Light does have companionship of a sort. Misa remains by Light's side as devoted as ever. After regaining her memories, once Rem died, Light returned her death note to her custody so she would remember everything. Misa resumed her role as Kira's helper. However, Light largely keeps her out of active duty now. He cares for her in his own cold way, or at least appreciates her unwavering adoration, but he also sees her limitations. She's useful for occasional tasks, like using her Shinigami eyes to quietly identify some hidden criminal whose name isn't known publicly. But otherwise, Light encourages her to live a relatively normal life under his protection. She ends up something like a secret spouse to him. They are never officially married. Light thinks that S too risky and too binding. But they live together in his upscale apartment overlooking Tokyo. Misa couldn't be happier. In her eyes, she's practically Mrs. God of the New World. She cooks elaborate dinners for Light, decorates their home with cheerful enthusiasm, and even at times coaxes him into sitting down to watch a silly romantic movie with her. Light indulges her in these small domestic moments. In the soft glow of their living room as Misa curls up next to him on the couch, Light sometimes almost feels normal again. Almost. If any regret or doubt ever crosses Light's mind in those quiet evenings, he buries it deep. Perhaps on a rare night, when Misa has fallen asleep with her head on his shoulder and the TV casts flickering light across the room, Light allows himself a fleeting reminiscence of his past self, the idealistic student who once dreamed of becoming a police commissioner like his father. That boy is gone forever, replaced by the man who rules over the police now. Any what-ifs about a peaceful life, untouched by the death note, are quickly dismissed. The world needs Kira needs him. Light firmly reminds himself. To waver now would be to betray everything he has sacrificed. Ryuk remains a constant presence too. The Shinigami finds the human world under Kira supremely entertaining. Sometimes Ryuk will lounge invisibly on Light's balcony railing as Light gazes out at the sleeping city. So, king of the world, Ryuk will say, chomping on an apple, is it everything you hoped for? Light smirks at the dramatic title. It is necessary, Ryuk, he replies quietly, eyes on the neon skyline. This is the only way the world can be fixed. Ryuk usually just cackles. If you say so, Light. In those exchanges, Ryuk doesn't praise or judge, he merely observes, as he always has. Light finds that oddly comforting. In a sense, Ryuk is the only one who sees Light for exactly what he is and stays by choice even if just for amusement. There's no need for pretense with a Shinigami. Sometimes Light talks freely to Ryuk in those late hours, laying out his next plans, musing about humanity as nature. They were like children, Ryuk, Light remarks one night, looking down at the orderly glow of city lights. They say they want freedom, but give them freedom, and they create chaos. Now they beg for my order, my guidance. They were so much happier being led. Ryuk snickers, tossing the apple core over the edge. Humans are interesting, is all he'll say in reply. And somehow, That simple affirmation that he and Ryuk are watching this experiment unfold together makes Light feel slightly less alone in his self-made universe. Beyond the personal, what Light has achieved is staggering. By 2010, Kira-S New World Order is in full effect. The global landscape has changed in ways both dramatic and subtle. Wars, for instance, come to an almost eerie halt. Long-standing conflicts, regional wars, insurgencies are forced into ceasefire because Kira won to tolerate mass slaughter. In 2009, when a brutal civil war in a certain country led to a village massacre that made international news, the perpetrators, a warlord and his top aides, died within the day forums. Spacebattles.com. The message was unmistakable. Kira is watching, and even war crimes are no sanctuary. After that, many conflicts froze. Nations embroiled in border disputes abruptly began seeking diplomatic solutions, however uneasy, under the implicit threat that Kira would strike down aggressors. I4NIpeace.wordpress.com. To the average global citizen, it seems almost miraculous world peace or something close to it emerging within a decade of Kira-S appearance. Old enemies sign cold but pragmatic treaties. Rogue military leaders hold their fire, lest a mysterious heart attack befall them mid-campaign. Similarly, organized crime empires that once operated with impunity are dismantled from the top down. Drug lords, mafia bosses, human traffickers all find themselves targeted and eliminated. They start dropping dead one by one as soon as their names or faces surface in the public domain of law enforcement. For example, infamous cartel kingpins in Mexico and Colombia suffer fatal heart attacks on live television as news of their atrocities airs. Notorious Eastern European mob bosses perish after Interpol publicly issues warrants with their identities. Even elusive figures in human trafficking rings are not spared once international reports name them. Without leadership, many criminal syndicates fragment and wither. The global narcotics trade is crippled, cocaine pipelines collapse as Kira wipes out kingpins, and what remains of the illicit drug market goes deeper underground, splintered into small cells that live in constant fear. In cities like Naples, Tokyo, New York, and Hong Kong, places long dominated by mafias, yakuza, triad citizens witness unprecedented power vacuums as Kira picks off the old guard of organized crime. For communities formerly under the thumb of these criminals, Kira is literally hailed as a savior. In parts of Mexico once terrorized by cartels, residents celebrate in the streets when word breaks that Kira eliminated a local drug baron. They paint murals of a winged figure striking down serpents, emblazoned with the word Kira. In small Italian towns in Sicily and Campania, church bells ring out upon news of mafia dons dying. Villagers light candles at shrines giving thanks for Kira-S divine intervention. Across the world, similar scenes play out, people rejoicing as long-standing sources of fear in their neighborhoods are erased. It is no surprise, then, that Kira worship grows even more fervent. What started as scattered cults becomes almost mainstream in some places. Within 6 years of Kira-S debut, the public becomes divided chiefly into two groups: the majority who support or even idolize Kira, and a quiet minority who still harbor reservations, often silently. Death Note, fandom.com. Many in the majority genuinely view Kira as a holy force. In their eyes, he is the answer to prayers their governments never fulfilled. They kneel at makeshift altars. Some literally have Kira shrines in their homes with the word Kira surrounded by candles and flowers. They leave offerings, a practice imported from traditional religions like notes, thanking Kira, or lists of criminals they hope he will punish next. The world's political leaders navigate this reality with caution. Democratic nations publicly maintain that they do not condone murder, but their actions speak differently. They scale back police manhunts for Kira, citing lack of leads, and perhaps secretly relieved to avoid drawing his ire. Authoritarian regimes opportunistically align themselves with Kira's philosophy. They start claiming that their own harsh domestic policies are in line with Kira's will. It is an easy way to justify cracking down on dissent. Dissenters can be labeled as evil or anti-Kira and thus fair game in the eyes of an already pro-Kira public. In this sense, some oppressive governments get even more oppressive, piggybacking on Kira's fearsome reputation. Human rights organizations, what few remain outspoken, struggle to call this out because doing so sounds like opposing Kira a dangerous stance. If one were to look back at the world Light set out to create, one would indeed find much of his vision realized. Violent crime is down by an astonishing margin. Various reports cite a 70-drop globally death note. Fandom.com. Some claim wars have essentially ceased, though conflict has simply taken more covert forms. Citizens in many countries report feeling safer than they ever have in their lives. The media, education, and social norms have all bent in support of a singular ideal: that crime is absolutely evil and that an absolute force is right to eradicate it. At surface level, it is almost utopian. But beneath that shiny facade lie moral and structural cracks that may one day split wide open. The peace under Kira is a peace enforced by fear. People aren't refraining from wrongdoing because they've grown more virtuous or empathetic. They're doing it because a sword hangs over their necks. It raises an uncomfortable question. If Kira were to disappear tomorrow, would society remain orderly? Or would it fall apart without the threat of instant judgment? Light himself occasionally contemplates this. He knows he is not immortal. Though with every criminal he judges, he lengthens his life thanks to the Death Note's grim mechanism of taking remaining lifespans and adding them to the user's, even he will die someday. He's considered taking on a protege or ensuring the Death Note passes to someone who shares his ideals when the time comes. But trust does not come easily to Light Yagami, and the irony of that is not lost on him. I alone am worthy of this power, he often thinks, echoing the God complex that has only grown over the years. As for Near and Mello, the two orphans whom L groomed to succeed him, they do eventually make their play, but not in the way Light expects. In canon, they confronted Light openly and defeated him through a mix of strategy and luck. In this timeline, Light's vigilance and ruthlessness prevent any missteps like Mikami's that could expose him. Mello tries a desperate gambit by kidnapping Kira's spokesperson, Kiyomi Takada in canon, and later by seizing a Death Note via the Mafia, but Light anticipates and thwarts these moves, eliminating Mello and his gang with a combination of Death Note usage and well-placed accidents. Near, lacking tangible evidence, and with the world's authorities no longer fully backing him, finds himself isolated. In 2012, Near and a small group of FBI loyalists attempt a final sting operation, but Light turns their trap back on them, leading to Near's quiet disappearance and an announcement by Light that the case is closed. There is no dramatic warehouse confrontation in this timeline. Instead, Near vanishes, presumably yet another victim of Kira's perfect judgment. By the time that chapter closes, Light has eliminated the last of his adversaries. There is no one left who knows his secret or has the will to oppose him. Our story then comes to an uneasy conclusion. Light Yagami Kira has achieved what he set out to do. He envisioned himself as the god of a new world, and now he essentially is. Crime across the globe has fallen to record lows. Deathnote.fandom.com. People who once lived in fear of criminals now live in fear of him, and they consider it a more than fair trade. The world is largely united by coercion, but united nonetheless in its compliance with a single standard of justice. From Light S' perspective, it is nothing short of paradise. He stands atop a skyscraper S roof one evening, looking out over Tokyo S lights. In the soft wind, he closes his eyes and feels the quiet of a city without sirens, without gunshots. This world, he thinks, is finally on the right path. My path. But in the silence, if one listens closely, one might hear the faint crackling of tension in the air, the pressure of millions of people biting their tongues, holding their breath, suppressing their true thoughts. Fear can keep a society in line, but fear as foundation has its costs. Light, in his hubris, believes the cost is negligible compared to the suffering he ended. Many agree with him. Some Don T history has yet to have its final say. As the camera of our narrative pulls back, we see what Light cannot. A world that is safer, yes, but also eerily subdued. Its freedom pruned back under a heavy, unseen hand. It is a world where justice comes swiftly, but at the expense of the humanity that real justice is meant to protect. It is the world Light created, the world of Kira S. victory. Light Yagami stands alone in the high-rise headquarters that once housed the Kira investigation, now effectively his throne room. Screens around him show feeds of news from every continent, most of them praising Kira S. latest deed or discussing the latest legislation rushed through to appease Kira S. principles. Light S' face is calm, illuminated by the glow. In his hand, the black death note hangs at his side, the instrument by which he reshaped the world. Ryuk hovers nearby, lazily tracing patterns in the air with his bony finger. "Hey, Light." Ryuk breaks the silence with a curious tone. "Now that you've won, what's next?" Light glances at the Shinigami with cool confidence. He closes the death note, and for a moment we catch a hint of the teenager he once was: brilliant, idealistic, and fatally misguided. "What is next?" he replies, stepping to the window and looking down at the orderly city below. "Whatever I decide, this world is mine to mold into perfection." Ryuk merely chuckles, a dry rasping sound that echoes in the vast room. Outside, the wind carries the faint echoes of both cheers and whispers, the world murmuring to itself in the quiet that Kira has imposed. This, then, is the ending of our alternate timeline, a world saved by Kira S. hand. It is a world of peace and terror, of unity and oppression, of justice delivered and justice denied. A world where one man's dream of cleansing evil came true, and with it came a host of new dilemmas. In the original Death Note story, Light Yagami's hubris was his downfall. In this story, his hubris becomes the law of the land. We at Anime Autopsy have delved deep into this scenario, exploring not only how events might diverge from the canon, but what those divergences say about power, morality, and human nature. It is a cautionary tale as much as a wish fulfillment one. Kira S. victory shows us a tantalizing vision of a crimeless world and forces us to ask, at what cost? Imagine living in that world. Some of you might think it is a dream come true. No more crime, swift punishment for anyone who dares harm others. Others might find it a nightmare. No room for forgiveness or error. Everyone constantly under threat of an invisible judge. Most of us would find it a mix of both a paradise with a dark shadow over it. As we conclude this ultra long form what if analysis, ask yourself, if you had the power of Kira, would you use it? And if the answer is yes, consider Light Yagami's journey from a well-intentioned student to a tyrant god. And remember how fine the line is between justice and vengeance, between hero and villain. In the end, perhaps the lesson is that the means do matter. No matter the end, thank you for staying with Anime Autopsy through this extensive exploration. We hope it kept you hooked for the full duration and gave you plenty to ponder. In the world of anime and beyond, few tales inspire debates on morality and power like Death Note. And few thought experiments are as chilling as imagining what would happen if Kira ruled the world. Until next time, stay curious and stay critical. This is Anime Autopsy signing off. Good night, and beware of any mysterious notebooks lying around.